It has been an absolutely astonishing season.
And welcome to the FSR IndyCar series here, back from a 2-week hiatus here at lovely Road Atlanta in Brazelton, Georgia. I'm here, Tyler Parker, with my co-commentator Corey Dyer and Peter Schulze on camera today, and we're going to be bringing you this great action with this great DW12 chassis here, the IndyCar series here at Road Atlanta. To my recollection, I don't think Indy cars have ever raced at Road Atlanta, but this should be a great race, Corey, as Road Atlanta is a very fast track and is going to put these drivers through their paces.
Yeah, it's the beauty of sim racing here. Like I said, IndyCar's not racing here, but through the powers of our fantasy, we can make it happen. I've been looking at the practices going on so far today and, of course, yesterday. And these drivers are putting on some wicked fast laps. Been seeing them just getting shy of that 1 minute mark, about 1 minute 1 second around this track. Tyler, I hope in qualifying we get it down under the sub 1 minute. I mean, we're seeing the first times come through already here. 103 is a pretty solid time. That's what I'm going to expect about the midfield to the back of the field to be getting, but the faster drivers, I'm expecting them to be able to get it really close to that 1 minute.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you there, Corey, for sure. As I'm just riding along with our race director and new FSR president, I believe, Cameron Rogers, has got a little air coming out of that final turn here at Road Atlanta. Yeah, I think they're going to have to be pushing that sub 1 minute for pole time. And obviously, a couple of drivers that we're going to have to keep our eye on that are possibly going to be able to do that are Miguel de los Rios, who finished second 2 weeks ago at Road Atlanta, or in Watkins Glen, and obviously Lorenz Doherty, who finished first in Watkins Glen last week. Basically, Lorenz and Miguel de los Rios were just able to run away from the field 2 weeks ago and really dominate that race. With Lorenz obviously showing his flexing his muscles a little bit more and really taking control of that race and almost having a little bit boring race where he was just out front dominating the proceedings out there. But we have a lot of new names up toward the top, and we have a lot of new guys getting into this series, which is really great because this is a non-inclusive series. Anybody who wants to join, just log into FSR, create yourself a profile, RSVP for the race, and get involved with this because this is what sim racing and the sim esports thing is all about, is community. So feel free to join ours and get involved with this to be certain. But definitely, guys, that we're going to want to keep an eye out on, at least at the top of the charts right now, Mark Hutchinson's, Tom Lombards, who I know both Mark and Tom racing some other open wheel series and are stupidly quick. Another guy to keep an eye on who's up there toward the top of the timesheets is Lars Jepsen. I actually work with Lars in another team, and he does a great job racing enduros, mostly the LMP3s and the LMP2 cars. Definitely one of the guys that I'm going to be keeping my eye on today, who can really turn in some quick and dangerously fast laps here at Road Atlanta, is Lars Jepsen. Anybody that catches your eye right now, Corey?
Well, I've seen a couple from Pavlov, and just before I was going to say that, Philip Kraus has just set the second fastest time, just getting there 1:02.483. That's a pretty darn blistering times. For me, today is going to be looking at Lorenz Doherty. If you guys aren't part of the Discord server and all of that, you might not know, but he's been having some technical issues with his steering wheel. So coming in today, we weren't expecting him to race. And then literally about, a minute before qualifying starts, he pops in the into the server and it's just like, hey lads, I've come to win this. I haven't done any practice, but I'm going to smash it today. And already coming out with the third fastest time. This is a lad that, like you said, has got some pure skill. Absolutely blistering times set 2 weeks ago at Watkins Glen. But today, I reckon he's not going to get it so easy because of that lack of sort of track information. He doesn't have the setup. Everything that you would normally do in about 2 hours or whatever over the week, getting that practice in, he's got to do in the 15 minutes of qualifying, as well as set a time to put him very high on the grid.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Lack of setup and preparation time definitely going to be something that we're going to have to look at potentially hurting Lorenz. If people have
And
watched
those wolves.
FSR, sorry, yeah. But if people have watched FSR in the past, this league is a little bit more cutthroat. You are kind of out there by yourself. Obviously, whoa, Phil Kraus got a lot of air there coming off that final turn. It's a little bit more cutthroat. No teams, obviously. I'm sure there's, some slight helping here and there, as everybody is here to help everybody and to be competitive. But sort of that no team aspect that you might see in FSR, World Championship or Ace or Pro or any of those categories as well. Everybody's out for that win, that top step on the podium, and then whatever else anybody can pick up from there on out. But yeah, definitely, it'll be interesting to see where Lorenz basically slots himself in as far as which is P3 right now. He has gone P3, so he's not going to be starting toward the back of the field. Although that would have been an amazing drive to see a fast driver rush through this field. But anyway, Corey, I want to talk a little bit about some of the strategies that we're going to be looking at. So last week, or 2 weeks ago at Watkins Glen, we have basically some interesting strategies where some guys are trying an undercut, some guys tried an overcut. But the basic rules for this are you have a option tire, which is the red sidewall tire, and a prime tire, which is the black sidewall tire. The black sidewall tire is going to give you better wear and duration and consistency over a longer run, but that option tire is going to give you more grip, a quicker grip, but will wear a lot sooner on with that option tire, that red sidewall tire. So will we see some guys maybe starting toward the back or anything qualifying on potentially their prime tire, and then maybe trying to leapfrog some guys through the race on just duration and going on to that red sidewall tire a little bit later?
So the interesting part here is the comparison over to F1 is normally, with these anyway, it's more like a soft and a hard. There is a big difference between the two.
Right.
And normally you're going to pick that prime tire, the harder one anyway, purely because you're stuck in traffic. You can't overtake so much. We don't have a push-to-pass system here. So trying to prolong it out, making sure that you've got that tire life in it, and you can conserve a little bit of fuel as well, so that when you've got that space to go into that open air, you can really just let it all go and catch up, make that ground. So here, I'm not gonna say focus on the back initially, because this strategy for me is all about these guys that start maybe between 7th and 10th. The lads that could win this race still, even though they're a little bit back on the grid. But if they start with that, harder tire, they're going to be able to just try and follow, keep it close, try and slipstream behind the drivers in front. And then when they go into pit, they can just prolong it out and then maybe go onto that softer tire afterwards. Or who knows, maybe do 2 harder tires. We saw at Watkins Glen, a couple of drivers happened to go for 2 pit stops because, they're just wearing 3 softs. And, there is the thought, on paper, you would just go for that extra pit stop but keep on the softer tire. But that does not happen in real racing, because you're having to fight, you're having to compete, and you're having to sort of stick around. So anything can happen. It just comes out to, is there a crash? Then you might just go there, okay, I've got to duck in, I can quickly change my tires and use it to the optimal strategy. Or if everything's staying clean, then maybe sticking to those harder tires and just trying to prolong it out, make one good overtake, and then keep it the stick is what you want to go with. But for me, quite often undercuts are the way to victory here. Just try and get in early, try and get that little bit of a lead, and then get straight on out afterwards.
Yeah, that's usually the case, especially in a race where fuel is not going to be a factor, for sure. The other thing here is, as quick as this lap is around Road Atlanta, I haven't seen any times of average speed, but I gotta imagine that this is going to be one of the fastest average speed tracks that we have, that we're going to be racing at. Potentially, you're going to really want to maximize the amount of track position that you have at the times that you have it, not really let anybody steal that track position away. So I think to your statement there, Corey, you definitely do want to try and come in a little bit earlier and really maximize getting clean air when you can get it. Definitely maximizing the amount of track position you can gain after that pit stop, to be certain.
Yeah, as well, here at Road Atlanta, we have 2 key overtaking points. If we quickly bring up the map for everyone to see at home, 2.5 miles, this one, 40 laps. The race last 2 weeks ago at Watkins Glen was only 30 laps. That just shows the difference in length. 100 miles here. But 12 turns, and 2 of them for me are key. Turns 6 and turns 10. After the S's and then going through 5, you're going to be at a high speed, like I said, and maybe try and get some dive bomb attempts. And the same can be said on the back straight, going all the way from 7th all the way to 10th. It's a massively long, fast straight, and then you've got a hard braking zone into 10. And this is quite often where you see those drivers try and get on the inside. And that, for me, is going to be your key overtaking points in this race.
Indeed. As a little bit about these cars, too, I'll go into a little bit of a tangent here into these cars. These cars, like you brought up, no push to pass or anything. These cars also create a lot of downforce, and they punch a pretty big hole in the air. And I think you said earlier on, as we were watching practice, slipstreaming might be a thing that we're able to see, especially on that long backstretch here at Road Atlanta. So we're going to have to definitely watch out for that as well, as these cars do generate a lot of downforce. This DW12 chassis, I don't know how many actual IndyCar fans we have out here, but the newer car creates so much less downforce that you would see in real life that these DW12 cars are really going to be able to scream through here. But another detriment to that is it sometimes hinders passing, especially on these road and street circuits. But with that section there, I think our biggest area for excitement that we're going to see is that I think it's turn 10A and 10B going into Road Atlanta here. That's going to be my area where I'm going to really be watching and seeing whether or not there's a lot of movement there as far as passes for position and passes for the lead potentially.
So we have been waffling on for nearly 40 minutes now, whilst qualifiers have been going on. We're already starting to see the grid form up in front of us. Mark Hutchinson straight out in front, a big lead here, 2 tenths, over 2 tenths in front of Jacob Reed, who has just snuck on in. Lorenz Dyer putting in some very good times. You got to think, like we said, without the experience of the track, not really having that much knowledge, 3 tenths behind is going to be exciting going into this race. Philip Kraus in 4th there with 102.48. Lars Jeppensen in 5th, Tom Van Egmond in 6th, Tom Lamberts is now dropped down to 8th. What is this? A big overtake from Dylan Scrivens, who has just taken 3rd, an absolutely blistering lap of 102.369. Brilliant stuff there. Just going down the track, people are still finding it out. They've got the experience now. We're starting to come down to the point where drivers are going to just be on the outlap trying to get in the fastest time they can possibly get. A little bit of rubber has been laid down on the track, and that should mean a little bit more grip around the corners, shouldn't it, Tyler?
Yeah, it should. The more rubber that gets laid down, especially on these option tires, it really seems to grip them up a lot better. So expect, especially in these final waning moments here, to really see the fastest lap set in qualifying.
So a lot of drivers finished up now. We've got half on the track. Mark Hutchinson there, just trying to get that edge ahead. He has just taken it. I asked for it earlier, breaking into the 101s, but none of these lads seemingly trying to get the little etch into the 100s, which is a little bit unfortunate for me, but we do have a lad who is set in a blistering time there. No one really being able to get within touch of it, and he just goes even faster there, Tyler. Bringing it down an extra attempt. He is really just setting the pace of this track as the only driver to be able to get into a 101. You see the next 11 being able to reach a 102. And after that, the 103s, the 104s, a couple of 105s. And then unfortunately, Aymeric Bols there at 107. The big difference here in times, which you might not see from the world champion sort of level if you're an avid viewer of the Formula SimRacing series, is that, like you said earlier, Tyler, this is open to anyone to come get involved. You don't have to, sign up and pay like what mission fee, whatever, to take part in the league. No, this is for anyone. This is just a bit of fun. So you'll see a big difference in skill level here.
Yeah, we will. We'll see some guys who are, you know, notorious hot lappers that come here and they like to test their skills during races. We see some guys who are more apt to maybe doing enduro races rather than this open wheel thing. But again, this is all a fun community. We're all we're inclusive, not exclusive. So if you are interested in this, FSR, go to the FSR website, sign up, make a profile there. And then RSVP Cameron, if you want to get involved. Custom skins within reason are acceptable. So if you're a skinner and really, you know, into that, please come on over. You know, do a few circuits, see if it's what you're interested in, and yeah, join. That's the biggest thing, is getting involved. So that's all I can say to that. As we've now entered the warm-up period, and it looks like on provisional poll right now is Mark Hutchinson, if I'm not mistaken. Correct, Corey?
Yep, Mark Hutchinson is up there in first, followed by Philip Kraus, Jacob Reed in third, then Scrivens in fourth. That then leaves Lorenz Doherty in fifth, Pavlov in sixth, Jefferson seventh, Egmond eighth, Lomberts ninth, Miguel de la Rias in 10th, Riero in 11th, Cameron Roger takes 12th, Thomas Watch in 13th, Paulie Ahonen in 14th, Michael Wilson in 15th, Andrew Botowski in 16th, Thomas Lenz in 17th, and 18th will be Alec C. Maisin. That then leaves behind this, so I'm just changing over screens.
No, that's fine.
Lazaro in 19th, Tank Applegate in 20th, Terry Crawford takes up 21st, Anton Skruzinsko in 22nd, Amric Bols in 23rd, and Chris Cobb, he has now started a race, but he didn't set a qualifying time, which is a little bit interesting.
Well, yeah, Chris might just want the challenge today. He actually had a really great showing in Watkins Glen, to be fair. So I expect Chris to come up through the field. Not sure how far he is going to be able to come up. Obviously, starting from the back is going to be a tough call for Chris, but definitely an accomplished racer and knows how to handle this car fairly well. So yeah, I expect Chris Cobb to come up through the field and work his ACR magic that he usually is able to work.
So I'm just going to also say one thing for you viewers at home, which might be a little bit new for you if you didn't watch Watkins Glen, is that we now have a track map. The wonderful lads have got that going. So just a little indicator for the colors of the blips on that. The solid green is the current focus. Your purple is the leader. The out lap sort of blue, and getting lapped is the more important one, is that blue one. And then of course, if it's a green with a hollow inside, that is in the pit lane. Just so you guys can know, of course, if you're wondering which each of the colors means.
Indeed, and that really helped. I think a lot of the viewership. It definitely helped us when we had the broadcast on the side, knowing who and everybody was focused on. But definitely lets you know who has the pace on track and lets you sort of visualize where that is, whether or not they're in dirty air, whether or not they're in clean air, where they are on the track that they are maybe making the most time. Definitely a very useful tool, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that piloted in the flagship series here at FSR next year.
So looking at these warm-ups, because this is an interesting one for me, of course, because you just had your qualifiers where you're trying to put on the fastest pace. These lads going around track now are trying to think, you know, they're doing their warm-ups, but quite often what you see, and it's a little bit cheeky, I'm going to say, because you don't get to see it so much elsewhere, but it's them with the full tank of gas, and they're just trying to navigate themselves around the track, because of course with that extra weight from all the petrol, and actually it's not really petrol, it's like ethanol, it's a weird mixture. It's like a special mixture, of course, in IndyCar, but with all that added weight on, it's harder. You actually have to take wider turns through the turns, of course, and of course brake a little bit earlier, don't you?
Yeah, the car is not nearly as nimble as what it would be on a lower fuel setting. And some guys actually set up their cars to work better under this heavy fuel mixture because you will be slower under this heavy fuel mixture. So if you have a better handling car, then usually your car will start to handle slightly better. Sometimes with a lesser fuel mixture. Sometimes you go too far and it doesn't handle as well. But definitely maximizing that amount of sort of give and take between the two settings of really, really light car, light fuel mix or light fuel in the car to heavy fuel car is definitely going to be a key here. And you'll actually see huge differences in pace to where these guys we might actually see people rocket up through the field or be able to gain a lot of positions early on because they found that sweet spot right in between.
Well, just a big keynote of that. Now, Jacob Reed, I'm just going to, and Pavlov, I am going to pick up on for that. Jacob Reed coming out fourth in qualifying with a 102.274. Now here in the warm-ups, he's getting a 104.8. Definitely, to me, that indicates that he's got a good qualifying pace and he's sort of like set his middle ground. But if you look at Pavlov there, a 103.836 in qualifying, he put down a 102.420. For me, looking at that, I go, okay, so Pavlov probably put a little bit more focus on his race pace instead of the qualifying pace.
Which we will go over the point structure a little bit. Obviously, points paid out to every position here that participates in the IndyCar FSR IndyCar series. You also get a point for pole position and a point for the fastest lap of the race as well. So obviously, points on call for that. So we have a car completely 180'd in the pit lane. So hopefully that'll get situated here real quick. But a shout out also to Jacob Reed, who did a great job to actually finish on the third step of the podium at Watkins Glen. So again, another driver that seems to, he might not have the overall qualifying pace of these guys, but he's definitely a player in the fact that he's able to get up toward the front and stay there, and definitely works very hard on that race setup, as we talked about here, Corey.
Definitely, and he was a lad that knew when to pit. If you looked at that last race, he thought about, you know, where he had to. Just looking at the in-game chat, of course, which you guys can't see, but the lads just talking to each other and having a little bit of joke about, because of course, like you said, the 180 car in the pit lane. The lads are all getting ready. This is them sort of, you can see a lot of them just sitting in pit lanes. This is their relaxed time, or quickly go have a wee, go grab your coffee before the race starts, because it is going to be roughly about an hour these lads are going to have to endure through it. I wouldn't say it's the longest race. You know, they're not doing the, if you've ever seen it, the 24-hour races, which some sim races doing. My hat off to them. That's nuts. But it's still a long one because, as you know, Tyler, a simple, small mistake can really mess up an entire race. For me, the guys that normally win, well, not win, but win out, you know, the lads that are starting from, say, 12th, 13th, are the ones that are very consistent. They're not the fastest drivers, but they do not make mistakes. So they can climb all the way up to, say, 3rd or 4th. And to me, those are the lads that are impressive that they can do that. So it's just showing you might not have the mechanical skill of driving, but you've got that mental aptitude where you can just keep cool and focus as you're going through.
Exactly. Consistency is the killer here. If you're inconsistent, it will punish you. If you are consistent, you can really, really make up a lot of time, and you can really, really make up a lot of positions on track. Strategy is also going to play into that, but again, consistency around the track is the biggest thing, and that is going to be one of the biggest things going forward, especially at Road Atlanta, where you're on that razor's edge, basically, of being over the limit and just that much, just that little scotch too far under the limit to where you're just not maximizing what you can do with that car. And in this series, as competitive as it is, it's definitely going to be about maximizing as much as you possibly can. A little bit, I want to get in a little bit about, again, I'm more of a strategy guy, so I like to think about these strategies. I'm wondering, so if we look back at Watkins Glen, we saw pit stops, at least for our front runners, slightly later than halfway point of that race. So for this race, I'm wondering if we're going to see a more measured, where it is right at around halfway, or like you made an allusion to earlier, Corey, if there is potentially an opportunity to undercut. I would think maybe within about 3 to 4 laps before halfway, we might see those guys trying to take that undercut advantage and come in there. As I've seen mostly everybody on these option tires, don't know necessarily what the primes are going to be able to actually do. But if you're able to stretch those primes out a little bit longer toward that second stint, I'm wondering if maybe we'll see those guys coming in for an undercut roughly about 3, maybe 4 at maximum laps earlier. And then we might have the guys who are at the back, maybe starting on those prime tires, coming in a little bit later. But again, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this race pans out.
Yeah, and remember, you have to do a mandatory pit stop in this as well.
Right.
For the other tires. So, I mean, you're going to want to change the tires throughout the race anyway, but it means like some drivers can't go from the harder tire to the harder tire or just do 3 softs, you know?
Mm-hmm.
They've got to go to the upper ones. Like you said, maybe these drivers are going to try and prolong out the harder tire and prolong out the softer tire as well and go that way, or you'll get some that will on the very start just completely rag it around the track and just wear the living daylights out of that initial set of tires, which remember as well they've had to carry on over from qualifying. So just near enough throw those away, maybe go on to the medium set of tires there and then finish out on the softer tire. It's a lot of strategies which these guys are having to think up themselves, of course, because they don't have a race mechanic behind them or whatever. In sim racing, that's the one thing I always love, is that you've got to be the entire team at the same time.
Yeah, indeed. A lot of the onus is definitely placed on the driver making decisions. I actually do help some teams with engineering on the side, which they're lucky, you know, not lucky to have me, but you know, it's lucky that I'm even able to help them. And a lot of the times it's just giving the driver an option and the driver still picking which option he thinks is best. And I'm also really, you know, blessed to actually work with some drivers who are very intelligent, and you will meet some of these guys who are very, very race adept. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this whole strategy thing plays out here at Road Atlanta, as we are now getting ready to the call to the grid. So we will go on one formation lap, and then I believe we have a rolling start here at Road Atlanta. So that could be interesting as well, because the field will be probably getting the rolling start as some of the back of the field is coming through that treacherous final turn where you're going to get some air. Although they should be at far less speed than what they normally are. I believe there's going to be no passing until you cross the start-finish line. So cars are rolling, and here we go. Corey, if you want to take us through the field. If not, I can.
Yep, no, I'll take the luxury of doing that. So, of course, safety car leading the entire grid through their first lap, forming together. At the front, you're going to have Mark Hutchinson and Philip Kraus. In the second row, it'll be Jacob Reed, Dylan Scrivens. Third row will be Lorenz Doherty and Vladislav Pavlov. Behind them, it's Lars Jeppensen and Tom Van Egmond. Behind them, of course, leaves Tom Lamberts and Miguel de Arias. Tyler, do you want to take the rest from 11th onwards?
Sure. We have Argenis Riera in P11. Cameron Rogers, our race director, and in his sweet, I guess, Dazzle camo car in P12. Thomas Bach.
That's what it is.
Thomas Bach in P13. Paulia Honen in P14. Michael Wilson, P15. Andrew Boratovsky in P16, Thomas Lenz, P17, Alexei Meisen in P18, Tank Applegate, P19, Terry Crawford, P20, Anton Shirichenko, I hope I'm saying that right, in P21, Amerik Bolza in P22, Chris Cobb, P23, Christian Lazaro, P24, and that'll round out our field in here at Road Atlanta. And as they are making it through the knuckle of the drumstick that is Road Atlanta, I believe that's 6 and 7 right there, or might be 8, 7, and 8 right there, as they're heading up through turn 9 on this backstretch here. we're definitely going to be in for a banger of a 40-lap race here, Corey. So, oh, what do we have? Spinner?
Yeah, we just had someone absolutely flip on out. Thomas Lawrence
Oh,
in the
Thomas
background.
Lenz.
Don't know what happened there. Hopefully he's going to be able to.
Yeah, he'll probably start from pit lane, is what I would assume. And yeah, that's just.
I wonder what happened. He must have gone into a back on the car or something. Weird and wonderful as it was. Going to have a little look at Torres as he lines up in the pit lane. He's got to be kicking himself for that one because, of course, he'll have to go to the back of the grid to get his start. We've seen a lot of the drivers in the midfield swerving left and right, warming up those tires. We're coming on to the starting straight. Speed being picked up now as everything is getting underway here for the first lap of Road Atlanta. Mark Hutchinson is going to be leading the pack, but already
contact there.
Big contact, big crash. The meme mobile has just absolutely devastated the middle of the pack, being able to get on through, but
and it all started with Lars Jepsen there, and or Jefferson there, and unfortunately he got turned. It doesn't seem like he's taken too much damage as we have another huge crash in the S's, and this may I don't know if it's going to constitute a red flag, but a lot of drivers just being they're just not handling the stuff in the S's. It's going to be slow through there, especially. So you're going to have to take your time through those S's. As it seems like we have Tank Applegate, and I'll tell you who actually is looking pretty good right now is we have Miguel de los Rios out of the race right now. So our second place finisher DNFing in the last place right now. Thomas Lenz right now is looking like he might be in the catbird seat, so to speak, as he's been able to avoid all of that from starting from the pit lane. And yeah, we're going to have a lot of drivers here coming into the pits and having to pit for massive damage, as more people are going to be DNFing out of the race. Paulie Ahonen is out with suspension damage. We have Terry Crawford into the pits, Dylan Scrivens into the pits as well right now. And yeah, just unfortunate through those S's. They were going to be tough. We'll take you to the front of the field right now as Mark Hutchinson has been able to lead lap 1. Jacob Reed behind him in P2. Vladislav Pavlov in P3. Tom von Egman, P4. Cameron Rogers in P5. Tom Lombert, P6. Thomas Bach, P7. Philip Kraus, P8. Lorenz Doherty in P9. Andrew Boratovsky, P10. Argenis Riera in P11. Michael Wilson in P12, America Bolza in P13, and Dylan Scrivens in P14, as we have a huge train of cars right now coming into the pits, led by Terry Crawford coming out, Tank Applegate, Alexei Meisen, Christian Lazaro having some trouble with their pit stalls right now, Lars Jepsen into the pits, and Chris Cobb into the pits as well. That leaves Thomas Lenz coming up through the field, and Anton Shirachenko still hasn't been able to get all the way around to the pits, unfortunately, and he is going to actually DNF with suspension failure as well.
Yeah, it's, I would say, an upsetting start to a race for the drivers. For us at home, we're looking, have to have a little bit of a giggle, I'm not going to lie. At all, these lads, maybe some of them got playing that new Core G game, just used to a battle royale. They should have come into this with a bit of a different mindset, I'd say. Mark Hutchinson, though, this has been the dream start for him, as he's just been able to keep absolutely clear of all the chaos. Jacob Reed following up behind him a little bit further back, 4.5 seconds to be precise, but he's absolutely loving it. Pavlov behind him in third, just blistering on. So the front of the pack, with the difference of the fight for fourth between Tom Lamberts and Cameron Roger, is pretty much so clear downfield that they can't be challenged. Tom Lambert's actually going off a little bit into the wall, and Cameron Roger is going to just absolutely pinch fourth place from him. But it's been a crazy start here to Road Atlanta, hasn't it, Tyler?
Yeah. I kind of thought that as those S's, that S's section here at Road Atlanta, I think it's like 4, 5, and 6, are definitely treacherous corners, to be fair. And unfortunately, it seems like some drivers weren't as briefed on that as they should have been going into this race. Stack-ups can occur, especially if somebody has any sort of damage or any sort of problem going in there. But unfortunately, that's the life some of these sim racing drivers live, is that first turn pileup can definitely ruin your race. But everybody here who's able to is going to carry on. And we have Andrew Boratowski coming into the pit. I didn't think he was involved with any issues, but maybe he was. So he's going to be pitting out of, I think it was.
He doesn't have a rear wing. I'm mostly impressed that he's been able to go around without that, to be honest.
Yeah, he doesn't have a rear wing.
Places now, but one thing I'm also massively impressed by is we've actually only had 3 DNFs. I thought it'd be many more than that after that. The first, I would say, what was it, 3 crashes technically?
Yeah.
In the end. I mean, they're all sort of domino effects after each other, where losing so many parts of your bodywork, you just don't have the control. But at least these lads will continue to race on, and who knows, even if you're at the back, they're starting to close in on each other as it is.
Well, if you're at the back, you know, my strategy would be somewhat what Lars Jeppesen is doing right now, and I believe Alexi Meisen is still on options. But Lars Jeppesen right now on the harder prime tires, so technically he could run this entire race without necessarily having to make another pit stop if these tires last. So that could be a boon for him if he's able to string together some fast laps and have all of that damage corrected during that pit stop. He doesn't have to come in and make another pit stop if these tires can last the entire, what is it? We have 30, well, he's on, unfortunately, 37 laps, so he will probably have a hard time, but he could make up a multitude of positions and maybe even a lap or 2 back.
Yeah, and just noticing now, Mark Hutchinson actually went through a little drive-through the pit lane. I don't know why. I didn't see a...
maybe jump the start?
I don't think he did jump the start, so it must have been a little bit of a collision or something, or maybe corner cutting earlier on. He's been asked to go through the pit lane, of course. But that has pushed him all the way back to 7th. Jacob Reed taken first. For me, that livens up this race so much. Mark had been putting on some great times, of course, throughout the whole qualifying and then at the start of this race. So he's going to be looking to climb, take some spaces back. It's actually, Jacob Reed has got the pack behind him, closing on in. All the way from 4th to 6th at Philip Kraus. 10 seconds of difference there. Earlier on, between Mark Hutchinson and then that same place, it was about 16 to 17 seconds. So things are getting tighter here as the follow-ups are essentially chasing down that mouse ahead.
And we have Ton von Eggman coming into the pits now. He has no front wing, so he was involved in some sort of fisticuffs on track as he's coming in to get his front wing replaced. As we have a pass for right now, Phil Kraus able to take P5 away from Tom Lombards right now. Down that backstretch, it was that slipstream there, as they're still slightly touching wheels. Tom Lombards is going to have the inside. Oh, they touch a little bit, but Phil Kraus is able to keep it there, and Tom Lombards gets a little bit spinny. Yep, got a little bit too much front nose downforce there and spun the rear around, and Tom Lombards is actually going to lose 2 positions, drop him down to P9 with Phil Kraus up at a P5.
Yeah, fair racing incident there as well. The space was there for Tom, but you can't blame Kraus there for, he gave him the space, and it was just Tom late braking. Kraus actually, I'm going to say, he's got balls of steel as well for not, you know, backing out of it, because of course he went into it. But yeah, I expect to see many more of those incidents coming up, because you've got Mark Hutchinson, of course, closing on in with Philip Kraus behind him, and of course Philip is looking for Cameron Roger ahead. He's got all the way up to 4th now. Lorenz Doherty in 3rd. Not that much further, only about 2 seconds between Lorenz Doherty and Philip Kraus as it is, just for a little bit of reference for you guys. So with all this slipstream, because remember as well, these drivers are slipstreaming off the back markers who are a bit behind and, you know, have to give over that spot. There's going to be so much madness throughout the entirety of this field.
Really understanding how to handle and where to handle on the track. Lap traffic is going to be key for these guys, especially up the front. to manage and maintain the lead that you've built up. Now, right now, there is a roughly 10-second gap between Vladislav Pavlov not 10-second gap, a 6-second gap roughly between Vladislav Pavlov and third place Lorenz Doherty. But if they start getting into lap traffic, which Jacob Reed is working his way through some of the latter half of the field right now, this gap could close quite quickly. As we have Jacob Reed right now going on the inside of Bolzev right there, and Jacob Reed able to make that pass stick. So Vladislav Pavlov is going to be coming up on these guys. I think that's Jefferson and Bolze up in front, as Jefferson is able to get by Bolze up in front there too, through the last turn onto the front stretch. Pavlov's going to catch these guys in a very inopportune place. It's going to be up and through the S's here is where he's going to be probably catching Bolze, and that is going to wreck his momentum.
I was going to say, Jacob Reed is now just getting so far ahead of third, fourth, and all of that, purely because his timing has been perfect. It has been so ideal to make his overtakes. You look at Cameron Roger and that behind, and he's just been getting caught in the traffic, and it's been taking away those precious seconds which he needs. Philip Kraus, oh no, going really wide off of there, gets the car back under control, recovers it, loses a place, however. But, blimey, I thought that meme-mobile was just going to be splat into the wall.
We've seen the meme-mobile, unfortunately, go splat into a wall every once in a while. But yeah, Phil behind the wheel of this thing, definitely able to keep that where it needs to be. Unfortunately, though, loses a place to Mark Hutchinson. So I'm just looking at the lap times right now, and the last lap right now, the fastest one was actually by Lorenz Doherty at as that just ticked over now. But he was in the 103, I think, 7s, if I wasn't mistaken. So Lorenz Doherty, as he has a huge spin through turn 3, turn 4, gets back on the track, but guys are going to be bearing down on him very quickly as Meisen and Rogers go by. Meisen, though, a lap car. Rogers catches him in the worst place in the S's, and this is going to allow Doherty to mount a counterattack potentially.
Well, yeah, Cameron Rogers just taken third away from Doherty, now is looking to grab it back. You can see the pace he was able to pick up was incredible, chasing behind again, going to try and get that slipstream. He is right behind, going into the back straight. He's going to be wanting to reclaim it, and he's having to think about it. You can see just wiggling out, wanting, do I take that back? Do I take it back now, or do I just have to wait for the dive? He's being very cautious. He doesn't want to make more mistakes as he comes through turns 10A and B, making it all the way back onto the straight. A little bit of egg taken. Getting close. He's come down to turn 1. He's on the outside, but the defense from Cameron Rogers absolutely fantastic, holding on to that racing line.
Indeed, and I just want to give us a quick update. Thomas Wach has come into the pits here, and he has actually gone on the harder option, or the harder prime tire right now. So making a pit stop at lap 9 roughly. Thomas Wach, we'll see if he's able to maybe go the rest of the race, and that might bode well for one of the guys who came in earlier that I know of and switched on those harder prime tires. Lars Jefferson might be able to come up through the field a little bit quicker and maybe get up into the top 12 by the end of this race. We shall see.
Unfortunate news as well. Tank Applegate has had to DNF out of the race. Clearly got into a crash and has retired. That's unfortunate, but what's even more unfortunate, Cameron Roger going for a spin, backs himself up against the wall, and now has to do a 3-point turn maneuver and get himself out of the grass. So he is down to 7th. Lorenz Doherty taking back 3rd place. Probably not the way he was expecting here, Tyler, but I don't think he's going to be upset all easy.
But let's go back to when Lorenz, as I hear some contact. Cameron tried to take turn 1, and unfortunately Cameron has bended into the wall and lost his rear wing and probably just destroyed that car. So Cameron Rogers is going to be DNFing from the race with suspension damage. So he'll be dropping through the field now, unfortunately. I thought the saving grace for Cameron's thing is always right by the pit lane. He can hop in and get anything repaired. but Cameron trying to soldier on and just unable to make that car turn through turn 1. So it'll be a short excursion after that spin for Cameron Rogers. But let's go back to that move that Cameron was able to get on Lorenz Doherty to get up into P3. The whole thing was undone by the fact that he got caught with lap traffic in that S's area. That location of the lap traffic really held up Cameron, or he would have possibly been able to pull a little bit farther away from Lorenz, as we have some more contact that I hear going on somewhere on track, as it seems like Tom von Eggman has just going very, very slow over the crest of the hill there. I was unable to see where that contact was actually occurring from. But anyway, yeah, catching traffic and where you catch the traffic is going to be so critical, again, for these guys, and where they catch it and how they deal with it is going to be huge. And as you can see, that can really play havoc with your race.
Yeah, and just a big example here, Jacob Reed just going past Terry Crawford a second ago. Crawford's going so slow. He's struggling to get his car around turns. He's got to continue. Seemingly, it's a bit of suspension damage going on. Looking at his wings, they're absolutely fine. But or maybe a little bit of puncture on the tire, maybe a lot of flat spot, and if he's gone for a spin.
And Corey, we have a pass right now. It's not huge. It's P12 on P11. Tom van Eggman and Thomas Lenz, and
it's still fine.
They're able to get by. Sorry, I had a huge screen freeze there, and I thought my rFactor was going to stop. But yes, Thomas Lenz able to get by Tom von Eggman. Sorry about that, Corey. I thought that was going to be a very entertaining pass, and then I couldn't really keep up with the action. So
it is what it is. Don't worry about that at all. Philip Kraus, unfortunately, has just gone for a spin as well. He's just lost a place as he goes down to 6th. But I don't know what is going on with these lads. Maybe taking it a little bit too wide around these turns, trying to carry too much speed, and then going over those curbs, tapping onto the grass. There've been so many spins on this race.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, maybe the guy's trying to limit the amount of downforce that they're having to maximize the amount of, or minimize the amount of drag that they're producing by minimizing the amount of downforce that they're producing. And maybe that's not the most ideal strategy here around this tight and twisty and very high speed, mind you, Road Atlanta. As we have Phil Kraus coming into the pits right now for his, I'm assuming, mandatory pit stop. A little bit earlier than what I would have thought, but again, maybe Road Atlanta isn't known as a track that really wears tires all that.
Tyler, it's the spins. He has gone for about 3 or 4 spins now. Those tires have got to be.
Oh, they're probably
so many flat spots on them. So now just going for, yep, he's going on to the black wall tires. He's going for the longer stint. I think he's going to be trying to make these last, and he'll probably try and be a little bit more cautious as this race goes on.
Indeed, and I gotta think that Michael Wilson is probably in there for the same thing, as we have a Tom Lombards right now. Oh, I thought that was a battle for position, but these pit stops and these spins by guys have definitely put some new faces up in the top of the leaderboard, as we'll give you a full field rundown right now with about 40% of the race complete. On lap 16, we have Jacob Reed in P1, Vladislav Pavlov P2, no change there. Lorenz Doherty up now in the final podium position, as he's been putting in the fastest laps so far in the race. At about a 103.7 is the fastest one that I've seen him run. We have Mark Hutchinson in P4, Argenis Riera in P5, Tom Lombards P6, Dylan Scrivens P7, Thomas Bach P8, and he's already come in for a pit stop, mind you. Phil Kraus again in P9, who I believe has also come in for his final or pit stop as well. And Michael Wilson P10, Thomas Lenz P11, Tom von Eggman P12, Emeric Bolza in P13, Terry Crawford P14, Chris Cobb P15, Lars Jeppesen in P16. So he's been able to make up a place. Alexei Meisen, P17. Christian Lazaro in P18. And our final running car is Andrew Boratovsky in P19. with Cameron Rogers, Tank Applegate, Anton Shirchenko, Miguel de los Rios, and Pauly Ahonen in the
and
DNF
now
positions from
Philip
P20
Kraus.
to P24.
Philip Kraus has just DNF'd out the race with a suspension failure. Oh no. That's a bit of pill to swallow there for Kraus. It was looking very good. A couple of spins, yes, but his pace that he was putting on, he was able to make up the time with his average race pace. So it's unfortunate that he's just had a little bit too much damage to that car. Now, really, the only battle still going on is there between 10th and 11th, between Thomas Lenz and Tom van Egmond. The other drivers have now got a bit of distance between them. Oh, it looks like Tyler's rFactors, who has just crashed again, unfortunately. I was waiting for his little bit of insight there, a little bit of the master knowledge. Michael Wilson just coming into the pits right now. He's going to be going on to the harder tyre. And this is typically where you see most of the field. Of course, that softer tyre not lasting as long. So the harder tyre, you want to get in a little bit before halfway, which, funnily enough, happens to be now. Pavlov gets overtaken by Doherty, actually. So Lorenz Doherty is now up into second, sorry, as Pavlov is down in the third. Mark Hutchinson following behind, and he's not that far back, actually. You would think about 2-3 seconds behind. In fifth, Argenis Riera, a little bit of a gap there, 10 seconds behind. And, well, that's a lot of distance to grab. Tom Lambert is now trying to chase on down Argenis Riera, 2 seconds behind. Dylan Scrivens trying to get as far away as he can from the back of the pack, but Thomas Watt is behind him. Thomas Lenz still a fair bit ahead. He's being able to find distance from Egmond, who does have a driver in between. We'll be hoping to make the overtake sometime soon, as he does not want to get held up for too long. Terry Crawford just coming into the pits as we speak. He's going to be moving on to that harder tyre. Really now, everything in the race just sort of spreading out. His driver's going to be looking to hold on. Too many mistakes have been made throughout the entirety of the race, and they're going to try and make it stick. Because you got to think, we've now lost 6 drivers from this race. You don't want to be the 7th. You don't want to be the 8th, because now you're getting into the parts of the race anyway, where you could be getting into the points just for surviving. That's how treacherous Road Atlanta has been so far. Lorenz Doherty coming into the pits, trying to make about the midway mark, and that's interesting, going into, of course, the harder tyre. But all 3 ahead of him, Jacob Reed, Mark Hutchinson, Argenis Riera, and now Pavlov, he's going into the pits as well, so he's not going to make the overtake. But basically, Lorenz Doherty now in a very good spot. Don't get me wrong, he's about 30 seconds behind, but with pit stops, they're a little bit longer in Indy, aren't they? Where it's just that natural change of it.
Yeah, the tire stops in Indy are a little bit longer. Honestly, they don't really do a whole lot of just tire stops in Indy a whole lot anymore. If you're going to stop the car, you might as well put fuel in it in real life. But for the most part, they should be slightly longer just because you have fewer guys available to go over the wall. One guy is moving the tire, taking it off the hub, putting it down, putting the new tire on, and putting in that one bolt in there. So tires on average should probably take about an extra 3 seconds more than what F1 stops are. So
I'm there thinking in my head, that's still impressive, because one guy has to do everything. And of course, that's then simulated onto rFactor 2, where it just extends the time, because I always find it quite funny when you're looking at pit stops here. Tom Lambert's at the moment in the pits. Might be the example. I don't know if he is lifted off the ground, but you'll notice how the car sort of just like lifts itself up magically into the end. air, and then suddenly 5 seconds later, boom, just drops back on the ground and you go.
So the ingenious thing that IndyCar uses that F1 doesn't is, and this is probably what F1 uses to save on weight a little bit, is IndyCar actually has a pneumatic jack that they're able to plug into the back of the car, and they actually have jack stands, 3 of them, that pop down when you hook up that pneumatic jack to the back of the car, and it pushes the car up just like that. It's not like the lorries or the dollies that F1 uses to actually manually jack up the car. That way, you have one less person going over the wall to actually put that in. Well, 2 less people to have to jack up the front and the back of the car. Although these pneumatic jacks have failed, and teams have had to go back to the old tried and true method of manually jacking the car up, which at that point adds just even more time to the pit stop. But that's the innovation that IndyCar has had, and they've done some really cool safety stuff with that as well, where they've actually installed it toward the back end of the car, the tail of the car, where the gearbox would be. Whereas normally what they used to do in the past is they had it actually right over the top of where the driver was sitting, and then you would have to pull that out to actually get going again. And unfortunately, that ended up with a guy actually being run over. He survived, but he ran over trying to pull that air jack out. Unfortunately, that was the end of when IndyCar was like, yeah, we're going to switch this to the rear end of this car.
So, looking at track, we've had a couple of maneuvers purely down to pit stops. Of course, Jacob Reed now down to second. He's gone on to the... I'm being a div here. Gone on to the harder tyres, of course. Mark Hutchinson on the softer tyres is going to be... he went for a little bit of a wide stroll, I would say there, as he's taken first place in 17 seconds now, separating them. Lawrence Dyer has been able to claw back 7 seconds himself, and like we said, on this tyre compound, he's not going to be changing those tyres, so he's going to be looking to continue it onwards. Looking through, say, race view there, Tyler, are there any 2 drivers which you think are super close to each other?
So, again, Thomas Vogt came into the pits, and I want to say he was in the latter half of the top 10. He came into the pits, I want to say on, well, I don't want to say, as we have our leader, Mark Hutchinson, in. He ran roughly 9 laps on those option tires. Came in onto the primes. Guess what? He's up to P5 right now. So that undercut paying dividends right now for Thomas Vogt. That has been a huge thing. And then with Mark Hutchinson here, he's probably going to drop all the way down to, he gets right back out into P3. But Dylan Scrivens,
and that's only because Scrivens is in the pits.
Yeah,
that's
Scrivens has just come into the pits as well right now. So that's going to be a huge thing. Some of the other drivers that I'm looking at that came in early, I'm surprised to see how far Vladislav Pavlov has actually fallen behind. That's crazy to me. As our Genis Riera also, well, he's a relatively new pitter and he was within the top 5. But Thomas Vogt right now is our big strategy winner, as he's been able to get all the way up into P4 right now. It'll just be, can these tires last the rest of the race? We're over halfway, so he's got another, 15 so laps or so to complete. If these tires can last another 15 laps, then Thomas Vogt is on pace for a great finish here at Atlanta.
The biggest example that is going to be is that Argenis Riera has just come out on that harder compound. So we're going to be able to see the difference in pace between them. The battle for 4th at the moment between Thomas Vogt and Argenis Riera, which Argenis is getting that pace back. You can see closing that gap. So it's going to be interesting there to see that Thomas Vogt now has got to defend. That's how he's going to keep this place. Because I don't think, to be quite honest, he's going to be able to catch up with Mark Hutchinson, Doherty, and Reed. He's got to just hold on to 4th. And he might have to even lose 4th. But the problem is, does he then allow Riera to get past? So that, he's got that big gap through to Dylan Scrivens, who is about 10 seconds behind. Or does he fight it now, even though it will slow him down, but maybe try and go
Riera go by.
Let Riera go by and then just keep driving a solid race.
Right, because Riera he's going to have almost what Rieri's had 2 laps to. He's got almost 14 lap older prime tires. Now the prime tires do have a wider and longer operating window, but again, I don't have the data in front of me that says this is how long they actually operate and this is their operant range. Thomas might be able to do that. And as of right now, actually Rieri has been able to get by Thomas Bach. But if I'm Thomas Bach, I'm just going to sit around, ride in 5th place, and be like, hey, I was able to undercut almost 3 or 4 people easy on this strategy. And at a time when people were like, wow, coming in on lap 10, that's interesting. Thomas Bach has proved that the undercut is definitely alive in the FSR IndyCar series.
Yeah, and you saw that from the overtake earlier. Riera just got on past. I wouldn't say fight for it, but Thomas wasn't handing it over. He was there going, you're going to have to overtake me on the straight. I'm not going to allow you to dive bomb me. Riera did dive bomb a slight little bit, happened to go on the inside. That's just because Thomas was there like, I'm not giving over the racing line to you. I want to go the fastest I possibly can whilst keeping at a strong and steady sort of pace where I'm not giving up anything to the guys behind. And unfortunately, we just got another DMF as Michael Wilson's just dropped out of the race. So that now makes it 7 drivers dropping from the race. Then Scrivens, we're talking about that fight essentially against Thomas Watch, who has come into the pits. Oh my, that is a big one. He's got to be going on the softs then and hoping to get on. Unfortunately for him, he looks to have the same pitting spot as Amrik Bowles, and so he has had to wait to pit. That is so unfortunate for him.
Indeed. One of the unfortunate limitations of rFactor is the fact that though you can fit 44 cars on track here, the pit boxing situation sometimes gets a little dicey. But yeah, this is going to definitely do damage to Thomas Bach's ability. But now he will be on the softest tire with the least amount of fuel for the rest of the race. So he should be able to set in some flyer laps and maybe regain some of the ground, as he's actually fallen a lap down to our leader Jacob Reed right now, who is still about 4 seconds ahead of Lorenz Doherty in 2nd, and then Mark Hutchinson in 3rd. But Thomas Bach is our first.
Oh, big collision there as Lorenz Doherty has just gone into James Riera. Was that? I can see. But yeah, Doherty now all the way down. That is so unfortunate there. Actually losing his front wing. That's going to be so much damage. He's got to pit to regain that. So, still so much to get into. I think it's actually against the back marker. So, that's him straight out of the podium. And blimey, actually looking at that, it looks like he's against Tom Lambert and Amrik Bowles, as we have now made it, blimey, 6, 7, 8, 9 DNFs.
Well, this is similar to what we saw in Watkins Glen, to be sure. That we saw a lot of guys, a lot of early on DNFs. The race sort of settled down a little bit, and then toward the end, especially once these pit stops happened and guys started to make moves, or guys started to push those worn tires a little bit more than what they should have, we definitely started to see more and more mistakes. But again, the guys up front, the guys who were able to keep the car underneath them, they're definitely doing a great job of keeping their cars up there and doing what they need to do. And even some of our guys who were involved in earlier incidents, I mean, Oleski Meisen, who's 5 laps down right now, is sitting in 14th place. That's not a terrible finish for him. Lars Jeppesen is in 11th place right now. Chris Cobb is who was also involved in that first lap incident there, is sitting in 10th place. I mean, these are great finishes for these guys. And as we see Lars coming into the pits right now, most likely to go on a set of softs, the option tire, red wall tire, is what I would surmise.
Yeah, and we've just seen this actually, the guys towards the back of the grid starting to pit now purely because they're going onto that softer tire. Clearly, they've overworked that harder tire, and it's just not working for them. They want to get a bit of speed back. Maybe those at the back are thinking, you know what, I think I can sort out the fastest pace. They're looking, say, over on RaceView maybe and going, okay, so the fastest time we've currently got is a 1:03.482. In qualifying, I was putting down 1:02s. I could just snag that extra point by getting the fastest lap, and maybe that's what they're trying, because everyone now left in the race is in the points. You know, the top 15, isn't it?
Well, everybody gets points. It's just a matter of how far up you finish here. I think you get 50 for first, and then 45, I think, for second. Unfortunately, I don't have the points table held up here. But even all the way down, if you DNF, you get a certain amount of points, which I think is a very nominal amount. But yeah, definitely adding that second tier of points, basically, that extra fast lap point if you're toward the back of the field, that might help you in the long run of this championship, able to leapfrog a guy by a point or two. Go ahead.
Thomas Lenz just spinning now, going to the grass, and that is a dodgy comeback on track. Good stuff there. Terry Crawford spinning out as well. What on earth is going on with these guys? They just want to go and make little donuts in the mud. We've got to really improve on that. I think it's these curbs. They're just too slidey. I think you're saying there's massive downforce on these IndyCars, don't get me wrong, but they can't just, like, they're not super glued to the ground. They do slide. You've got to really have good throttle control as you make your way through these turns.
Indeed. Definitely overcooking. And also, guys probably have a lot of front downforce on the car to get it to really turn in the way you want and to really be responsive on those turn-ins, especially through that fast sector. If you get it all wrong and you get it a little overcooked in the back, that downforce will actually work against you, pin the front end, and you'll spin that car all the way around. And yeah, this Georgia Clay, this red Georgia Clay, is just getting torn up today here at Road Atlanta.
Yeah, so these drivers left on the track. Borotowski at the back will be getting a minimum, as long as he finishes, that is, of 15 points. You cannot say the same for the others that have had to all drop out. Of course, Jacob Reed, if he finishes in first, as he is now, will be coming away with the 50. That is a big jump, especially between him and Mark Hutchinson here. 10 points difference between first and second. Mark Hutchinson is closing that gap. He's got 7 seconds left in this and about 6 laps to go. So looking at the times from the last race, he's getting about 1 second quicker a lap than Reed. Do you think he can up it a little bit more? Do you think he can find that extra second somewhere from these laps?
So what I'm just looking at right now is with Mark Hutchinson, Hutchinson's actually come in and made 2 pit stops on soft tires. He was able to take his soft tires 19 laps. Right now, the farthest I've been able to see anybody take the option tires is about 26 laps, and that was from Lars Jeppesen. Yeah, I think Jacob Reed has the ability, but it's how much time are you going to be giving up to Mark Hutchinson? Because right now, Jacob Reed has 12 laps on his prime tires. Mark Hutchinson, though, only he has 10 laps, though. So if Hutchinson's a little bit better and on lighter fuel, you should have less wear on these tires. If Hutchinson's able to put in these laps and has a better light fuel race setup than Jacob Reed, I think Hutchinson might be able to run him down.
For me, it's all going to come down to Reed not making mistakes. I am looking at the time set, the pace, and Mark Hutchinson is going faster, but not fast enough. He's got to pull out that little bit extra out of the bag, and Reed just has to keep going at the pace he's going now. It's been very comfortable. He's setting about 105s, just shy of him, so 104.8. Lorenz Doherty, though, oh no, is just dropped out of the race with a suspension failure from earlier. That is super unfortunate for him because he was on track to get about 4th, 5th. Wasn't as high as what he probably wanted at the start, but got into a lot of trouble throughout the race. But that is super unfortunate for him. For the other drivers on track though behind, they've got some more points from that, which of course they're going to absolutely love.
Oh, indeed. I know. I know the one guy I've probably talked about too much during this race is Lars Jeppesen. He's going to be happy. He's going to have a top 10 coming out of this race once he gets by Lorenz here, being the 4 laps down that he is.
Oh no!
Yeah. Oh, what now?
Meisen as well. An accident is what's reported. I don't know if he got caught up with Doherty there, but that now means we only have 13 drivers out of the starting. Was it 27?
4.
Was it 28? 24?
24. Yeah.
Oof.
And we have
that's
3
That's not
laps,
a good day at the track.
and we have 3 laps to go here, Corey. So 3 laps, and we are going to be seeing Jacob Reed. And I've got to think, Mark Hutchinson is going to have to do some sort of magic, although he's able last lap almost a second quicker again than Jacob Reed. If he's able to take a second off per lap, he might be able, he'll just fall short of actually doing it, as he's 4.6 back from Jacob Reed right now. So all Jacob Reed has to do is maintain his current pace, and Mark Hutchinson should not be able to catch him.
Yeah, this is what I was saying earlier. Mark Hutchinson has to find a second from somewhere in the next 3.5 laps. And I'm saying the extra second because he's got to make an overtake. And we could see this overtake if he does find it on that last turn. It's going to come right down to the wire. Maybe turns 10A and 10B, of course, like I alluded to at the start of the race. If that really is what it comes down to, a dive bomb into there, I'm going to be such a happy bunny. But at the moment, Jacob Reed, maybe, I don't know, how do you pick up the pace? Because he is losing near enough a whole second. Mark Hutchinson finding 1.2 seconds. It is coming down to Reed. Reed is slowing down. Those tires are starting to show their wear, and he's not. Hutchinson's just spun as well. No, that is it for him. Trying to quickly jump on the cameras. He's been able to get control again, but no, he's just spinning in a duck and not get that car turned around. It's just too much. He will remain ahead of a Janice Riera's. It was just that far ahead, but no, that solidifies it in my mind anyway for Reed, unless Reed, I don't know, goes for a whoopsie and just decides that he wants to go back to the sand.
Yeah, Hutchinson there is, if I'm back on server now, if I'm right, Hutchinson's actually pulled over to the side of the road and retired. Mark Hutchinson has retired.
Suspension
so from
failure.
P2, he had no front wing when I joined with him, and unfortunately that is going to be terrible there for Mark Hutchinson. And that'll move Argenis Riera and Dylan Scrivens up to the final 2 spots on the podium. Dylan Scrivens, who had his issues early on, and indeed, this is definitely going to be a coup of a win for Jacob Reed.
I think this race was like everything that could go wrong for a driver has gone wrong. I can even see some of the drivers like Thomas Watch there going really wide. You can see there is a lot of damage to near enough every single car on this track. It's basically not been about a drive of skill, but a drive of adaptability. That is completely I wouldn't say unheard of, but so rare. It's showing that whole mental attitude of you've got to adapt. Your car's changing throughout the race, so you've got to find new braking modes.
Ton von Eggman into turn 1, a big spin, but he's off the track. Just don't join in an unsafe manner there, Ton. But yeah, Ton spinning it right there. And no, I completely agree, Corey. It's been adaptability and attrition. Can you keep your car out of trouble for 40 laps here at Road Atlanta? And this might be why we don't see the actual IndyCars race at Road Atlanta ever, just because it would be so crazy. But all the drivers today have put forth, obviously, their best efforts and done one heck of a job doing what they do best, which is wrestle these DW12s. And these things are like gorillas, believe me. Wrestling a gorilla in a small room, these things have to be a handful to drive, especially around this fast and technical circuit. But here we go as we're riding along with Jacob Reed, and he's coming up on Václav Pavlov here, almost to put everybody outside of the podium a lap down. but I don't think he's going to get it done as Jacob Reed is going to be coming across the line. Our winner here, and as he hits the cone that was on the track there, as Jacob Reed now swerving side to side. Our winner here at Road Atlanta, the FSR IndyCar Series winner at Road Atlanta, as we have Argenis Riera coming out of the turn 8 and going through turn 9, coming up to 10A and 10B. Dylan Scriven's not too far behind, actually, from Argenis. So this could be an issue if Argenis has any sort of bobble in the last few turns here, which we hope he doesn't. But we shall see as Argenis coming through over the final turn, over the hill, coming through the final turn and crossing the line in P2. Dylan Scriven's P3. Vladislav Pavlov is going to finish up his lap most likely and finish, well, he has to finish up P4. Thomas Bach in P5. Thomas Lenz putting in a good showing on P6. Mark Hutchinson, P7. Chris Cobb, P8. Lars Jefferson in P9. Great recovery drive from Lars. Terry Crawford, P10. Kristen Lazaro, P11. Andrew Boratovsky in P12. Lorenz Doherty obviously having that suspension failure, which could have been a great ending if he hadn't had that, finishing in P13. And Tom von Eggman finishing his race 7 laps down, unfortunately, in P14. Our non-finishers, Oleski Meisen, P15, Michael Wilson, P16, Tom Lombards, P17, Emmerich Bolza, P18, Phil Kraus, P19, Cameron Rogers, P20, Tank Applegate, P21, Anton Shirachenko, P22, Miguel de los Rios in P23, and Pauly Ahonen in P24. Corey, yeah, I think you hit it before. Adaptability. My word is going to be attrition if I'm going to
I'll let that work.
describe this race. This has been fun. I figured Road Atlanta might be a little bit of a whirling dervish, so to speak. Yeah, it's been a fun race at the end, and to definitely see the cream rise to the top, so to speak. It's definitely been fun. Any thoughts for you on the end of this race?
For me, like you said, that attrition is so true because it was an absolute battle out there. It was a war between these drivers.
Yeah,
it felt like, I mean, if you just look at Christian Liero, he's actually only got 3 wheels at the moment as he comes into the pits to finish off. But these guys are all battle scarred, they're all bruised, but they have come out. The strongest survived here, and I just can't wait for the havoc that comes in 2 weeks' time, of course, when we come back to, is it Mid-Ohio there? For me, the problem is Road Atlanta is the elevation changes and the curbs. You skid out so much. It's so hard when, you're getting air. That last turn where you come into the grid straight, when near enough, you do take off. It's so hard to control these cars. So it is a completely different field out there than what you'd think just watching.
Indeed, I almost think in 4 weeks' time we're going to be at Mosport, and I'm thinking this might be a little bit of a preview of Mosport with the elevation changes that occur. But yeah, unfortunately, I won't be joining anybody for Mid-Ohio. I will be persona non grata for that one, but hopefully we'll have a great commentary crew there for you to take you through the action. And yeah, Mid-Ohio should be fun. You've got the keyhole. You've got the interesting. Hopefully we have a start on the backstretch like they do in real life there at Mid-Ohio, because that front stretch will definitely just be a complete carnage, I believe, if we start there. But you've got the keyhole at Mid-Ohio. You've got some of the elevation changes that do occur, and then you've got that wonderful final. Second final turn, penultimate corner of the carousel as you're going through that. I'm actually really disappointed that I'm going to miss that race. I think it'll be a great race, but we will definitely do our best to cover that for you guys here at the FSR IndyCar Series. Corey, any final thoughts or anything before we sign off?
Well, my thoughts pretty much like you. I'm a little bit unfortunate I'm not going to be able to watch that live, but of course, this being YouTube as it is, you can always watch it afterwards. And guys, if you're just coming into the latter part of this race, I'm just going to say, go back and watch the very, very start, because it was let's just say hectic for that. So make sure you quickly check that out, as well as other races. Make sure, like, I'm just going to simply say it, Google Formula Sim Racing. Come join in the community, find the website and get all the links there. But of course, until next time, we'll be back in 2 weeks, same time, 3 p.m. GMT is when the practice starts. If you're interested in getting on in for racing at home, then broadcast starts at 3:45 GMT. But until then, from, of course, myself, Corey, Dyer, from Tyler in the content booth with me, thank you so much. Peter behind the cameras, and then, of course, Cameron Roger for being the race director, as well as a pretty fun driver to watch on the track today. We give you a warm goodbye.